Let's review the steps involved in design, fabrication, and installation of custom-designed steel access gates and privacy panels to replace dilapidated wood slat panels and gates, which had long failed to provide any sense of privacy or security, let alone that pleasing sense of aesthetics and functionality. The easy thing to do would be to replace like with like using a pre-manufactured product, but defining needs and limits, the design solution needed to address security and privacy concerns, restore functionality, meet aesthetic tastes, and sustainability goals, all of which necessarily put a huge focus on material selection. The performance characteristics of the material needed to be robust yet remain functional. Aesthetically, the material needed to be appealing and provide a stylish, updated look. Also, the material needed to be one that did not require replacement anytime soon or require minimal, if any, maintenance. Even though newly introduced, it was desirable that the material be locally available and contain recycled content. Needless to say, in the material selection process, drilling down through all of these details, ultimately it was decided to work with steel. Schematically, the next steps in the process involved an assessment of existing site conditions, considering things that would change and elements that would remain static, taking site measurements and then ultimately developing and sketching out a set of design development and construction detail drawings which serve to inform the installing contractors, subcontractors, and all of those involved in sourcing and budgeting for materials, fabrication, demolition, installation, and commissioning. Every designer needs to put their hands on the materials that they are working with. So a sourcing trip to Mosley New Steel Warehouse was great because I got to look at all the different gauges of steel and have conversation with my supplier, which is important for maintaining a supplier relationship. Once the materials were procured, the next step was fabrication. The square steel tube used for framing the privacy panels and security gates, and the angle iron used as detail spanning horizontally across the top of the gates and panels needed to be cut to prescribed lengths using a laser cutter. I love this shot. Serendipitously, at 8 feet by 5 feet, the steel sheets were already cut to the desired lengths for the privacy panels. As for the gates, designed at 4 feet by 5 feet, a single laser cut was necessary to create 2 gate panel fields from one sheet, so there was zero waste. Once cut, the square steel tube and steel sheeting needed to be clamped together in preparation for arc welding, which is a common technique used to permanently bond steel. Of course, safety is of prime importance when arc welding activities, so here you see me wearing personal protective equipment to protect myself from heat, intense ultraviolet and infrared rays, and the potential for flying fragments of hot metals. The arc must never be viewed by the naked eye or by reflection from glass or metal. The privacy panels and gates were not lightweight and somewhat unwieldy. Remember, we designed them to be robust and durable. It took several sets of hands to move finished pieces from the workbench to the staging area to allow all of the welds to cool off and cure. Steel is one of the world's most recycled materials, with more than 80 million tons recycled annually. It's also continuously recyclable, which means it can be recycled over and over with no loss in performance. The steel used on this project was processed in an electric arc furnace, which melts more than 90% of steel scrap to make new steel. Assisting me in the fabrication process were Donald and David Grimm. Super smart, great to work with. Demo of the existing panels and gates took all of 20 to 30 minutes. It involved removing the hardware from the wooden slat panels and pulling vertical wooden posts, which were fortunately not secured with concrete footers, but partly why they were deteriorating. Lastly, in separating the metal from the wood, the materials were ready for recycling. In prepping the site for installation, the goal was to minimize impacts to all areas of the site. Ultimately, only a few plants were transplanted and nurseried in adjacent planting beds, and a few limestone steppers or slabs in the vicinity of the installation were unearthed and set aside for later resetting. Perhaps the trickiest part of the installation was setting the frame steel privacy panels in concrete footers and ensuring that they were exactly level. In true Iowa Hawkeye spirit, we went old school and listened to the Iowa Hawkeye football game over the radio that Saturday while we installed the systems and patiently waited for the concrete to cure. These views from the backyard garden and patio demonstrate that the design and installation of the custom steel gate and panel system achieved the desired level of security, privacy, functionality, and aesthetics. Alternate or exterior street views show the same achievements and highlight the sleek styling, which hits a home run in terms of delivering that much needed, updated, contemporary look and feel. Finished landscaping and plant selection activities are slated for spring when disturbed soils have had a chance to settle. Steel rusts naturally over time and allows for a custom, aged yet timeless look. It's maintenance free, there's no painting or scraping like other materials used for similar applications. But from a material science standpoint, as steel oxidizes, it rusts into this natural, beautiful color and very unique texture, an exciting backdrop to the plants that will be placed in its foreground on both sides, garden view and street view.